There is a place in southern Africa where the rules of nature are being rewritten, a place where the hierarchy of predators, that ancient, unshakable order that has governed life on the savanna for millions of years, has been turned completely on its head. In the Ngorongoro crater of Tanzania, and across the vast floodplains of Botswana's Okavango Delta, and in the sun-scorched Thornveld of South Africa's Kruger, there are clans of spotted hyenas that have learned to do something extraordinary, something that biologists, for decades, refused to believe was possible. They hunt lions, not in desperation, not by accident, not because prey is scarce and they have no other choice. They hunt lions deliberately, strategically, and with a level of coordination that would leave even the most experienced field researcher speechless. They have turned the continent's most iconic predator into prey. If you want to understand the wild world in its rawest, most unfiltered form, then stay with us. Hit subscribe now, because what follows is one of the most remarkable predator stories ever recorded on the African continent. This is not a tale of scavengers lurking at the margins. This is a story of intelligence, power, ambition, and a clan of animals that decided the top of the food chain was not where they had been placed, but where they intended to go. To understand how this happened, you first need to understand what a spotted hyena actually is. Because the popular image, the slouching, cackling scavenger, skulking behind lions and wild dogs, waiting for a free meal, is one of the most persistent and damaging misconceptions in the history of wildlife science. For most of the 20th century, even professional zoologists described hyenas in exactly those terms. They were seen as nature's rubbish collectors, animals that existed to clean up after the real hunters, animals with no particular intelligence, no complex social life, no strategic capability. It took decades of patient, often uncomfortable fieldwork to dismantle that idea completely, and what replaced it was something nobody had been prepared for. The spotted hyena is not a dog, it is not a cat. It belongs to its own family, the Talionidae, a lineage so ancient and so distinct that its closest living relatives are actually mongooses and civets. Its evolutionary history stretches back over 20 million years, to a time when the ancestors of hyenas were some of the most diverse and successful carnivores on Earth. There were dog-like hyenas, bone-crushing hyenas, hyenas the size of lions. Most of those ancient lineages are gone now. What survived, what endured through ice ages and mass extinctions, and the rise and fall of entire ecosystems, was this: a creature of extraordinary adaptability. The spotted hyena's body is a paradox. Its forequarters are massively built, its shoulders high and thick with muscle, its neck so powerful it can carry the entire leg of a zebra in its jaws at a full run. Its hindquarters taper away, lower and lighter, giving it that distinctive rocking gait that seems almost comical until you watch it maintain that gait for 20 kilometers without breaking pace. And it can. The spotted hyena is one of the most effective endurance runners on Earth, capable of sustaining speeds of over 60 kilometers an hour in short bursts, and of maintaining a loping trot of nearly 10 kilometers an hour for hours on end. A wildebeest, a zebra, a topi, a hartebeest, any of these animals, when chased long enough, will eventually slow down. The hyena will not. Its jaws are something else entirely. The bite force of a spotted hyena is among the highest recorded for any land mammal, relative to its body size. Those jaws can crack open the femur of a buffalo, can reduce a skull to powder, can process bone that would defeat any other predator on the continent. Nothing is wasted when a hyena feeds. Nothing. The calcium from bone becomes part of their own skeleton. The contents of the stomach and intestines are consumed. Even the hooves and horns will eventually disappear. This is not laziness. This is biological efficiency pushed to its absolute limit. But the most extraordinary thing about the spotted hyena, the thing that changes everything about how we must understand it, is not in its body. It is in its mind, and it is in the social structure those minds have collectively built. A hyena clan is not a loose aggregation of individuals. It is a tightly organized, rigidly hierarchical society with rules, alliances, grudges, punishments, and long memories. At the top of every clan sits a female, not the largest female, not necessarily the oldest, but the female whose lineage commands the most respect, whose mother held the highest rank, whose sons and daughters have inherited her position. In hyena society, status is matrilineal, passed from mother to daughter, from generation to generation, in a system of inheritance that mirrors, in some ways, the aristocratic dynasties of human history. The queen of a large clan may command over 80 individuals. She will never carry food to her subordinates. She will never groom lower-ranking animals. When she approaches a kill, every other hyena steps back. When she walks through the center of the clan's communal den, younger animals flatten themselves to the ground. Her cubs eat first, sleep closest to the den entrance, receive the most protection. Her status is absolute, and that status is enforced not just through direct aggression, but through something more subtle and more interesting. It is enforced through coalition. High-ranking females maintain their position, but a female who has the support of several other high-ranking females can defeat a much larger opponent. This means that political awareness, the ability to track relationships, remember past alliances, recognize who is rising and who is falling in the social hierarchy, is a survival advantage. Animals that are better at this live longer, reproduce more successfully, and pass their cognitive abilities on to their offspring. Over hundreds of thousands of years, this social complexity has driven the evolution of a brain that is, by any measure, exceptional. Studies comparing the problem-solving abilities of spotted hyenas with those of chimpanzees have produced results that surprised even the researchers who conducted them. In tasks involving cooperation, in challenges that require two animals to coordinate their behavior in order to achieve a shared goal, hyenas outperform chimps. Not sometimes, consistently. They figure out the solution faster, they communicate their intentions more efficiently, and they sustain their cooperation longer. A single hyena, presented with a puzzle box, may struggle. Two hyenas, given the same box and the same problem, will solve it in a fraction of the time. They are animals built, at the deepest cognitive level, for collaboration. And it is this capacity for collaboration, this ancient, refined, elaborately practiced ability to act as a coordinated group, that makes what happens next not just possible, but perhaps inevitable. The first documented cases of hyenas deliberately targeting lions came not from lions that were already sick or injured or old and isolated. They came from lions that were, by any conventional assessment, healthy, young males, prime adult females, animals that in every previous study had been categorized as effective deterrents to hyena-feeding activity. The assumption had always been that hyenas avoided lions wherever possible, that when the two species met, it was the hyena that backed down. The assumption was wrong. In the Ngorongoro crater, a volcanic caldera in Tanzania that functions as a natural enclosure, the relationship between lions and hyenas has been studied more intensively than almost anywhere else on the continent. The crater floor covers about 260 square kilometers. Within that space live two resident lion prides and a hyena population that, depending on the season and the year, numbers between 400 and 500 individuals. The hyenas are not a single clan. They are divided into several territorial groups, each with its own hierarchy and its own den site. But the largest of these clans, the group that occupies the central and eastern sections of the crater floor, has shown behaviors that have fundamentally altered how researchers think about interspecific competition on the African savanna. What this clan learned to do, and what the documentation of their behavior over more than 3 decades of continuous study has confirmed, is to systematically reduce the lion population in their territory, not as a byproduct of food competition, not accidentally, but as a strategy. It begins, as so many things in hyena society begin, with information. Hyenas are extraordinarily well informed about the movements of other predators. They track scent marks, listen for vocalizations, follow vultures, observe the behavior of prey animals. They know, at any given time, roughly where the lions in their territory are and what they are doing. A lone male sleeping under an acacia in the early afternoon. A female separated from her pride while moving between water sources. A subadult, newly independent, still learning the landscape. These individuals, isolated and temporarily vulnerable, are the ones the clan begins to watch. The decision to move against a lion does not happen impulsively. What field researchers observed in the Ngorongoro, and what has since been documented in other systems, including parts of the Kruger National Park and the Okavango Delta, is a period of what can only be described as assessment. The clan assembles. This is not a random gathering. The high-ranking females move to the front. The younger animals and lower-ranking individuals position themselves at the edges and the rear. Communication intensifies. The whooping calls that hyenas use over long distances bring in animals from across the territory. The grooming interactions that reinforce social bonds increase. The clan is preparing. When they move together. A group of 30, sometimes 40, sometimes more than 60 animals, moving with a shared sense of purpose that has to be seen to be fully understood. They are not a mob. They are not a panicked swarm. They move like a military unit, with the high-ranking individuals leading, setting the pace and the direction, and with the group maintaining a coherence and a discipline that is genuinely remarkable. The lion, when they find it, often has no idea what is happening until it is far too late to escape. A lone male, roused from sleep by a wave of spotted bodies pouring in from every direction, will initially attempt to stand his ground. Lions are not animals that flee easily. Their entire behavioral repertoire is organized around the assumption of dominance. A male lion that turns to face a hyena, that charges, that roars, will almost always cause the hyena to retreat. This is the pattern that holds in small-scale encounters. 1 lion, 2 hyenas, 3 hyenas, even 5 or 6. The lion wins. But 30 hyenas is a different situation. 40 hyenas is a different situation entirely. And 60 hyenas is not a situation that any lion, anywhere, is built to manage alone. What the clan does, with a fluency that speaks to long practice and deep collective knowledge, is envelop the lion. Animals come from multiple directions simultaneously. The lion cannot face all of them. It can charge one group, driving them back 10 meters, but while it does, animals from behind are already moving in. It can turn and face the new threat, but then the first group recovers its nerve and presses in again. The pattern is relentless. Retreat, wait, advance. Retreat, wait, advance. And with each cycle, the lion exhausts itself a little more. Its charges become shorter. Its roars become less frequent. The space in which it can operate becomes smaller and smaller. This is not random chaos. It is coordinated predation. The high-ranking females take the most dangerous positions, the ones that require them to be closest to the lion's jaws and forepaws. Their rank gives them both the authority to hold those positions and the long experience to do it without being killed. Lower-ranking animals fill the outer ring, maintaining pressure without exposing themselves to the greatest risk. Younger animals, still learning, observe from the margins, occasionally darting in, quickly retreating, acquiring through direct experience the skills they will need when they are older, and when the responsibility of leading such an operation falls to them. And sometimes, not always, but with a frequency that no model of accidental or opportunistic behavior can explain, the lion dies. The first time a field researcher formally reported witnessing a clan of spotted hyenas kill a healthy adult lion, the report was met with skepticism. Lions do not die to hyenas. That was the conventional wisdom. Lions occasionally die to other lions, in territorial conflicts or infanticide events. Young lions die to buffalo and elephant. Old, weakened lions occasionally succumb to a large group of hyenas. But healthy adult lions, prime animals in their full strength, do not fall to hyenas. Except that this one had, and then another, and then another. As the documentation accumulated, as the video evidence mounted, as the anecdotal reports from guides and researchers across the continent were cross-referenced and analyzed, a picture emerged that was impossible to dismiss. In certain locations, in systems where the hyena population was large enough and cohesive enough and old enough to have developed the necessary collective competence, lions were being killed not as aberrations, but as a strategy. The question that immediately follows is why. Food competition alone does not explain it. A dead lion provides some calories, but it is not a nutritionally efficient investment when prey animals are available. The energy cost of bringing down a healthy lion, in terms of injuries sustained, time expended, and individuals temporarily incapacitated, is significant. So why do it? The answer, and it took years of behavioral observation to begin to piece it together, lies in something that hyenas understand, at some deep level of inherited wisdom that human observers were slow to recognize. Lions kill hyenas, not occasionally, constantly, systematically, and in large numbers. Every lion pride that maintains a territory over a long period of time will kill dozens of hyenas. They kill them at kills, when hyenas attempt to steal food. They kill them at den sites, when they locate the burrows where hyena cubs are hidden. They kill hyena cubs specifically, in acts of targeted infanticide that are not about food and are not accidental, but are deliberate attempts to reduce the next generation of competitors before it can grow up and compete. In areas with large lion populations, hyena cub survival rates drop dramatically. The lions are managing the competition. So what the clan is doing when it hunts lions is not irrational aggression, and it is not purely nutritional opportunism. It is pest control, carried out with long-term demographic logic. Remove the lions from your territory, or at least reduce their numbers severely enough that they cannot mount effective infanticide campaigns against your cubs, and your clan's next generation survives at higher rates. Your population grows, your territory expands, your clan's dominance deepens. Killing lions is an investment in the future. This is, by any definition, strategic thinking. It requires the ability to connect present action with future outcome across a timeline that extends well beyond the individual animal's immediate needs. It requires a level of cognitive complexity that, until very recently, we were not prepared to attribute to hyenas. We should have been. There is a clan in the Ngorongoro whose story has been followed across 3 decades and multiple generations of researchers. The matriarch who led it during the period when the lion hunting behavior was first formally documented was an animal the researchers called kiboko. She had a notched left ear and a distinctive pale patch on her lower jaw, and she was, by every measure they could apply, an extraordinary animal. Kiboko had been born into a mid-ranking family. Her mother had held a middling position in the clan hierarchy, and Kiboko herself had grown up without the automatic deference that high-ranking females receive from birth. She had had to earn her position through alliances and through an ability to read and respond to the social landscape of the clan with unusual precision. By the time she was 5 years old, she was already recognizably exceptional, quicker than her contemporaries to recognize opportunities, more skilled at coalition building, more willing to take calculated risks. It was Kiboko who first led the clan in a sustained campaign against the male lion the researchers called Masimba, a young adult male who had recently established himself in the clan's core territory after being expelled from his natal pride to the north. Masimba was, by any measure, a formidable animal. He was in the prime of early adulthood, well-fed and physically imposing, and he had, within his first 6 months in the territory, killed 2 hyena cubs and seriously injured a third. He was a problem. What Kiboko did over the following 8 months was build the coalition she needed to address the problem. Researchers documented the change in the clan's behavior as it unfolded. The frequency of high-contact social interactions among the top-ranking females increased. The vocal exchanges between the clan's core individuals intensified in the evenings, in the periods before and after collective hunts. The clan began, subtly at first, and then with increasing regularity, to move as a group through the section of the territory Masimba had claimed. These were not direct confrontations, not yet. They were reconnaissance operations. The clan moved through Masimba's area, scent-marked extensively, and withdrew. They were reading him, learning his patterns, understanding where he slept, when he moved, how he responded to the presence of large groups of hyenas. And Masimba, to his credit, did not ignore them. He was wary. He scent-marked aggressively in response to theirs. He roared at night. He was aware that something was building around him. The first direct engagement came on a moonlit night in the dry season. Masimba had made a kill, a young zebra stallion, and was feeding alone when the first wave of the clan arrived. The sequence that followed was not a simple mobbing. Kiboko and 3 of the highest-ranking females positioned themselves directly in front of Masimba, while other clan members circled from behind. Masimba charged Kiboko. She retreated exactly far enough to draw him away from the kill and then stopped. He was now away from the zebra carcass and surrounded on three sides by hyenas. He was not injured in that encounter, and neither was anyone else, but he abandoned the kill. Over the next several weeks, encounters like this one became more frequent. Masimba was spending more of his energy in confrontations and less of it resting and feeding. He was being worn down, not physically, but psychologically. The clan was creating a situation of constant, low-grade stress that had measurable effects on his condition. He began to lose weight. His movements became less predictable, more reactive. He was no longer patrolling a territory. He was trying to survive in one. The decisive encounter came at night, during a period when large wildebeest numbers had drawn much of the prey base toward the western side of the crater, and Masimba was consequently hunting and feeding in an area close to the clan's central den. He was in the wrong place. Whether by planning or by fortunate coincidence, Kiboko's clan had gathered in larger numbers than usual around the den that evening. When Masimba was located, moving along the edge of a swampy area near the center of the crater floor, the clan moved as a unit. Researchers estimated between 55 and 65 individuals. The encounter lasted slightly over an hour. Masimba fought with everything he had. He killed 2 hyenas and seriously injured at least 3 others before the end. But the end came. He was found by a research team the following morning, in the shallow water at the edge of the swamp, dead. The clan fed on the carcass, and then they moved on. Masimba was not the only lion that Kiboko's clan is believed to have targeted. Over the course of her prime years, the lion population within the clan's core territory decreased from 7 resident individuals to 2. Whether all of those disappearances can be attributed to the clan's activity, researchers are careful to say, cannot be definitively established. But the correlation is there, the timing is there, and the behavior, documented with increasing clarity over 3 decades of fieldwork, is there. What Kiboko's story tells us, what the story of her clan tells us, is not simply that hyenas can kill lions. That much is now established, beyond any reasonable doubt. What it tells us is something more profound, and more unsettling, and more magnificent. It tells us that in the ancient, unending negotiation between predator species over space and food and reproductive success, intelligence is not a fixed quantity, not something distributed in permanent hierarchies between the different animals that share a landscape. Intelligence is a tool, and some animals use it better than others. And the spotted hyena, the animal we dismissed for so long, the animal we described as a skulking, cackling thief, has been using it with extraordinary skill for a very long time. The impact of high-intensity hyena predation on lion populations is not a trivial matter. Lions are not simply the top predators of the African savanna. They are keystone species whose presence or absence shapes the entire ecological community around them. When lion numbers decrease in an area, the prey species that lions regulate begin to increase. Zebra populations expand. Buffalo herds grow larger. The increased grazing pressure from these animals changes the grass composition. The changes in grass composition affect the smaller herbivores. The smaller herbivores affect the raptors and jackals and servals and other medium-sized predators that depend on them. The removal of a lion from a landscape sets off a cascade of consequences that ripples outward through every level of the food web. When hyenas are the agents of that removal, when the reduction in lion numbers is not random or environmental, but strategic and targeted, the cascade takes on a different character. The hyenas are not removing lions from a landscape indiscriminately. They are removing lions from their territory, and in doing so, they are engineering the landscape to favor themselves. Without lions suppressing cub survival, the hyena population grows. With a larger hyena population, the clan can project more force, maintain larger coalitions, and extend its influence over a wider area. More territory means more access to prey, more den sites, more resources for the next generation. The strategy compounds on itself. In the Okavango Delta, where the hyena population is distributed across a complex seasonal landscape that shifts with the flood cycle, this dynamic plays out on a different spatial scale, but with the same fundamental logic. The delta's unique hydrology, the annual inundation of vast areas of the Kalahari, by water flowing down from the Angolan highlands, creates a constantly shifting mosaic of dry and flooded habitat that both lions and hyenas must navigate. During the flood season, prey concentrates on the islands that remain above water. Competition for access to those islands, between clans, between lion prides, between wild dog packs, is intense. In this environment, the clans that have learned to displace or eliminate the lion groups controlling the largest islands gain access to concentrations of prey that are, in the best flood years, almost unimaginably rich. The incentive to invest in lion hunting capability is enormous, and the Delta hyenas, tracked by researchers over multiple decades, have responded to that incentive in exactly the way one would predict of highly intelligent social predators operating under strong selective pressure. They have developed it. The den structure of Delta hyena clans reflects the strategic geography of their operations. Dens are positioned on high ground near the boundaries between flooded and unflooded terrain, locations that allow the clan to monitor movements across large areas and to assemble quickly when an opportunity arises. The matriarchs and senior females sleep closer to these strategic positions. The young and lower-ranking animals sleep in more sheltered locations. It is, in its spatial logic, something like a military encampment, and it functions with corresponding efficiency. There is one aspect of the hyena clan's behavior that researchers have found particularly striking, and that is the way in which knowledge of lion hunting technique is transmitted between generations. It is not instinctive, it is learned. Young hyenas do not hatch from eggs already knowing how to coordinate an assault on a healthy adult lion. They learn it by observation, by participation at the margins of operations led by experienced animals, and by gradual, supervised inclusion in the more dangerous central roles as their own experience and rank mature. Cubs as young as 6 months old have been observed attending the peripheries of interspecies confrontations. They do not participate, they watch. Juveniles between 1 and 2 years of age begin to move closer, taking low-risk positions at the outer edges of the encircling group, retreating quickly when the lion charges, advancing again when it falls back. Subadults between 2 and 3 years old take more active roles, contributing to the pressure while still deferring to older animals for the most exposed positions. By the time a female reaches full social maturity, somewhere between 3 and 5 years, depending on her rank and the intensity of her social education, she has accumulated years of direct experience in operations against lions. She knows what works. She knows what the lion is going to do before it does it. This is an apprenticeship. It is a structured program of knowledge transfer across generations, maintained within the cultural memory of the clan, carried forward not in genes, but in behavior. It is, in the fullest sense of the word, a tradition. And like all traditions, it can be refined. Each generation brings its own innovations, its own small improvements, its own adaptations to the specific circumstances and opponents it faces. The collective intelligence of the clan grows. The lions it faces are the same lions, shaped by the same evolutionary pressures, making the same responses to the same threats that their ancestors made. But the clan they face has learned from every encounter. For every generation, the tradition has been maintained. It is not a fair fight. It was never meant to be. The lions, to their credit, are not passive in this relationship. They have developed counter-strategies of their own. The most effective of these is coalition. A lone lion is vulnerable to a large clan, but 2 lions together are significantly less vulnerable. 3 lions, particularly 3 adult males, forming one of the defensive coalitions that researchers call a coalition of brothers, can hold their position against a clan of 20 or 30 hyenas, and in many documented cases, have killed multiple hyenas in a single encounter without suffering significant injury themselves. The mathematical relationship between lion coalition size and effective resistance to hyena pressure is one of the most well-documented patterns in predator ecology. This has had an interesting effect on lion social structure in high hyena density areas. Male lions in these systems tend to form larger coalitions. They stay together longer. They maintain closer proximity to their coalition partners during periods of movement. The social pressures generated by the hyena clan's hunting activity are, in other words, shaping the evolutionary and social trajectory of the lion population in response. The prey is adapting to the predator, even when the prey is the lion. Female lions in high hyena density territories also show modified behaviors. They are more likely to call for assistance from other pride members when approached by hyenas. They are more attentive to the peripheries of their territory, particularly during periods when prey concentrations would attract large numbers of hyenas. They are more aggressive in response to hyena vocalizations, particularly the assembling calls that clans use to gather members before a coordinated action. A female lion that has grown up in a territory dominated by an active hyena clan learns to read those calls the way the hyenas read the landscape. She knows what they mean. She knows what is coming. In some areas, the relationship has reached something approaching a dynamic equilibrium. The hyena clan is large enough to successfully challenge isolated lions or small subgroups, but the lion population, through coalition formation and behavioral modification, has reached a size at which it can defend itself against all but the largest clan assemblies. The two species exist in a state of mutual deterrence, each constraining the other's behavior, each maintaining the population pressure that keeps the other's numbers from growing too large. It is, in ecological terms, a balance. But it is a balance maintained not by passive coexistence, but by constant, active, intelligent competition. The Chobe National Park in northern Botswana presents another facet of this story, one that speaks to the role of individual personality within the larger clan dynamic. Every clan has what field researchers, somewhat informally, describe as specialists, animals that show a particular aptitude for certain kinds of operations, individuals that are consistently among the first to move when the clan assembles for a confrontation with lions, individuals that take the highest risk positions repeatedly, not because their rank requires it, but because something in their behavioral profile drives them toward it. One such individual, an adult female who was assigned the field identification K7 by the team monitoring her clan in the late 1990s, became something of a legend among the researchers who watched her. She was not the highest-ranking female in her clan. She was mid-ranking, the third or fourth daughter of a well-established lineage, but without the inherited status of the senior females. What she had instead was an almost compulsive boldness in interspecies confrontations. She was consistently among the first animals to engage when the clan targeted a lion. She held her position under charges that sent other hyenas scattering. She had, on multiple documented occasions, maintained contact with a lion that was actively trying to kill her, drawing its attention and holding it long enough for other clan members to close in from behind. She was not suicidal. She was not simply reckless. Researchers who analyzed her behavior carefully described it as tactically sophisticated. She understood, or appeared to understand, the geometry of the encounter. She knew that the lion would chase her when she presented herself as a target, and she knew how far it would chase her, and she knew, with seemingly precise calibration, how to stay just far enough ahead to survive while drawing the lion into a position that exposed it to the rest of the clan. She was bait, she was a lure, and she had apparently chosen that role. K7 survived to an estimated age of 14 years, which is a long life for an animal that regularly places itself in direct physical confrontation with lions. In her lifetime, she participated in at least 9 confirmed lion kills and an unknown number of other operations that did not result in lion deaths, but that contributed to the displacement of lion individuals from the clan's territory. When she died of a snakebite in the southwestern section of the clan's range, the researchers noted a measurable change in the clan's operational behavior in the weeks that followed. The boldness of their lion confrontation operations decreased. The most exposed roles were now being filled less consistently. There was, briefly, a gap where K7 had been. It was filled, gradually, by a younger female from a lower-ranking family, an animal that had spent years at the edges of operations in which K7 had led. This younger female had been watching, she had been learning, and what she had learned, from one of the best practitioners of a very dangerous art, she now began to apply. The tradition continued. There is a remarkable irony in the full scope of this story, one that becomes clear only when you step back far enough to see the whole picture. Lions have, for as long as human civilization has existed, held a special place in our imagination. They are the kings of beasts, the apex of nature's hierarchy, the symbol of power and dominance, so deeply embedded in human culture that it appears in the heraldry of ancient kingdoms and the mythology of civilizations from Egypt to Persia to Rome. We have never seriously questioned the lion's position. We have never really asked who or what might challenge it. The answer, it turns out, was always there, living beside the lions, watching them, learning them, remembering every lesson, building, over uncountable generations, the knowledge and the capability and the collective will to challenge what no other animal had successfully challenged before. The spotted hyena did not arrive at this capability suddenly. It was not the product of a single innovation, or a single extraordinary individual, or a single lucky encounter. It was the cumulative result of millions of years of selection pressure, operating on the most socially complex, cognitively flexible, behaviorally innovative carnivore that the African savanna has ever produced. The lions did not see it coming. They could not have. The transformation happened too slowly, too incrementally, too deep in the daily fabric of a relationship that had always looked, from the outside, like hyenas running from lions. But they were not running. They were watching. They were counting. They were planning. And eventually, they were ready. The broader implications of what the lion-hunting hyena clans have demonstrated extend well beyond the savanna. They speak to something fundamental about the nature of intelligence and the way it manifests in social animals, living under conditions of intense competitive pressure. When the stakes are high enough, when the pressure to innovate or perish is sustained over enough time, when the social structure exists to support the accumulation and transmission of knowledge across generations, animals do things we would not have predicted. They exceed the boundaries of what we thought possible for them. They become, in ways that challenge our comfortable categories, something more than what we assumed they were. This is not a comfortable conclusion. It requires us to revise our picture of what is happening in the wild world, to acknowledge that the intelligence we find so distinctive about ourselves is not a uniquely human property, but a point on a continuum that includes, at its higher reaches, a spotted hyena in the Ngorongoro crater that has figured out how to kill a lion. It requires us to look at the animals we share this planet with through different eyes that are prepared to be surprised, eyes that are prepared to be humbled, eyes that are prepared to see, in the behavior of animals we thought we understood, the marks of something we are only just beginning to comprehend. The hyena clan that hunted lions for sport. The phrase is arresting but not quite accurate, and the inaccuracy matters. It was never sport. It was never casual or gratuitous or without purpose. It was always purposeful, always strategic, always oriented toward the long-term survival and prosperity of the clan. Sport implies play. What the hyenas were doing was work, the most serious, the most dangerous, the most consequential work they could do, and they were very good at it. The Ngorongoro crater at dawn looks like it has always looked. The mist rises off the swamps in the eastern section. Flamingos stand in their thousands on the pale soda lake at the center. A cheetah moves through the long grass on the lower slopes, head high, scanning for prey. Two male lions lie on a kopje on the western wall, surveying the crater floor with the unhurried ease of animals that know they are powerful. But in the long grass to the north,